Estimated time is now 6:01. I call this regular meeting of the Summers County Board of Education back to order. We're on item number 6, public comment. There is none. All right. Moving on to item number 7, presentations.
We have Mr. Chad Nutter here to give us an update about the county and COVID and all the happenings that's been going on with the health department. Thanks for coming today. You're more than welcome to present like this. Good. Can you see him all right?
I can turn it.
Okay. Can I stand up? You are. You can do whatever you want.
Stand up.
The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you allowing me to come and speak just for a moment. I just wanted to let you know that Mr. Warble and I, we work great together. We're in constant contact in regards to the pandemic. Our priority is to keep everyone safe, whether it be in the community, whether it be in the county, or in the school system. So just want to let you know that up front. And I do appreciate him including me on some things that I need to be included on. And I know some counties don't have that luxury of the health department and the Board of Education, or in this particular case, the superintendent, to have that connection. So it works a lot better when you're one voice moving into certain situations. So today we picked up 5 additional cases. We have had 15 in the last 3 days. That's a pretty big increase for our small community. We're testing a lot, and I think that's keeping our color down, if you want to say that, our color coding that the state presents. But we are yellow today for the first time in a while. So 15 new cases the last 3 days. That puts us up to 94 cases, 37 active cases, 57 cases have recovered. We have 0 probable cases. We have 2 people currently in the hospital, and unfortunately, we've had 1 death in our community. Right now, we're having a lot of community spread, and I cannot stress enough for those in the room, for those watching, if you're ill, stay home. And if you get tested, stay home. What's happening is folks are getting tested, thinking, well, they may have one little small symptom and they won't be a spreader, and they're getting their results back 48 hours, sometimes 3 days, and they're just spreading like crazy. So if you test, you need to stay home until you get your result. Otherwise, you're putting a lot of people at risk. We've had a few outbreaks in the county. Those outbreaks are investigated thoroughly. We have guidelines for just about every business. We have guidelines for schools, for nursing homes, you name it. And if I don't know the answer, I find the answer. One thing that I do not do is shoot from the hip and make up things. If I don't know the answer, I'll find it, and we're gonna do what's best, not only for the general population, for the school, for everybody in our community. So I ask if anybody has any questions in regards to COVID, anything specific that they'd like me to answer. Anything that's might be troubling you, or maybe something you don't quite understand, or anything about trace contacting.
I think you've covered the trace contacting before, but if you got time, I'd appreciate if you covered it again.
Sure. Do you have anything in particular any particular scenario? There's several scenarios.
Not really.
Okay, so I'll just give you a few scenarios. Let's say you are asymptomatic and you decide to get tested. Okay, so you go to either the hospital or to a clinic or the health department, wherever. Drive through at a drugstore and you get tested. Your results come back typically in 2 days. If it's a PCR test, which is the nasal swab test, our labs are typically 48 hours for 2 days. So if you're an asymptomatic individual and you get tested and your results come back positive, trace contacting goes back 2 days from your test. So you already have 48 hours that you're waiting for the test. So now we have 48 more hours that you're having to go back for your trace contacts. The CDC overnight changed the main definition of close contact. Previously, close contact was defined as being closer than 6 feet for 15 or more minutes, and it's changed. Now it's being closer than 6 feet for a cumulative amount of 15 minutes over a period of 24 hours. Mm-hmm. So that could be around Lauren for 5 minutes now, 2 hours, be around her again for 5 minutes, and then 12 hours, be around her for 5 minutes. She's positive, and then now I'm a trace contact. So that has increased, I guess, the complexity of trying to remember who you've been around closer than 6 feet for 15 minutes cumulatively over a 24-hour period. Now, let's talk about symptomatic inputs. So let's say I'm sick today. I decide to get tested tomorrow. 48 hours later, I'm positive. Now my trace contact does not start the day that I test. It starts the day from when I became symptomatic. So it just depends on the situation. Quarantining, it's 10 days for a positive, 14 days for a contact, but it could be longer for a contact depending on if you live in the same household as the positive. Case in point, we've had individuals that have family members. I look at Lawrence. I'm just using Lawrence as an example, but say if Lauren's positive, then she has to stay home for 10 days. Her day 0 up to day 10, but her children, their day 0 would not start until day 10. So now we have almost 24 days for your family. So it can get very tricky if you have positive in a rather large family. If you're an individual that you can separate from the contact, then you certainly can do that, and we can start their day 0 the same as the day 10's day 0 or the positive day 0. Our numbers are escalating as far as the contacts are concerned. So vaccines, we don't have a definite date of a vaccine yet, but it's probably going to be sometime towards the end of the year. So end of the year, first of the year, we're probably going to see some vaccination clinics at some point across the state and even in Summers County. So there's protocol in place. We're finalizing that with the state of West Virginia. It's not something we're making up. We're not, I said again, we're not flying by the seat of our pants. We're following protocol. We're going to do it the right way. Does that answer your question?
Yes, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
We had a lot of concern with the few cases over here across from the elementary. Can you explain real quick why that wasn't considered an outbreak?
Sure. So we had 3 positive cases at Hinton Elementary. Two positives lived in the same household. And we had one positive that obviously didn't live in that household. 2 separate households. Because they were not epidemiologically linked, one family got it from one entity, the other individual got it from another entity. They were not linked together. And because that was not epidemiologically linked, and there's a whole definition of what an outbreak should be defined as, it was not. It just didn't meet definition, and that's why. That's in regards to that. So in the event of the school, trace contacting was conducted, interviews were conducted. We were over there at least 3 hours interviewing, doing our due diligence to find out exactly who had come in contact with the individuals that were positive. And when we left that day, we were confident that we picked up all of the contacts. Fortunately, it was on a Wednesday, which was no students. School school was closed Thursday and Friday for anything that may have developed over the course of that day, and nothing did, which is another testimony, I think, of our due diligence that day. So we were confident to proceed accordingly after that. Any questions? Comments?
The only comment I have is I think Chad and I talk to each other more than we talk to our wives. I think I've called you, you called me, and I know it sounds kind of funny, but at the same time, we take it serious. But just like with that case just recently, we have to do our due diligence, and I told him on the weekend, keep me updated, because he's going to find out doing the investigation, calling all these individuals. But people have to also understand, we have to watch HIPAA and FERPA. We like to tell people what's going on, but we can't dial down and tell you all these individuals because there's laws for that to protect people. And we don't want to shame, name, or blame people. We just want to let people know every Sunday, trace contacting happened, nothing further, or we will say, due to that, we have to now shut down schools. So that's why that happened the way it did. But we were fortunate that we dodged one there because it was not too promising when you first heard about it. And then Chad was telling me he did all his due diligence, and I appreciate everything he's done to help us out the school. So my hat's off to him. He's doing a hell of a job for us.
Thank you. I will say one thing. We've had other, and Mr. Wardle explains this on the Sunday call, we've had other students that have tested positive for COVID. Fortunately, they have not been in school during that infectious period. So, I guess another bullet dodged, so to speak, but that's disclosed and people are aware of that. And we've had several students that have been contacts of positives. So we've been very fortunate so far. Yes. I will say this real quick.
I was going to give you an excuse to leave the volleyball.
Well, I want to plug our cross country team.
Oh.
They had a regional meet today, and they had two state qualifiers. This is only the second year our cross country team has been in existence. Coach Starlipper does a great job. He has two state qualifiers, so hats off to him.
Yeah, Coach is very socially distant from everybody. He's mentioned that a few times, so it's pretty exciting.
He's excited right now.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I would just like to give Coach Starlipper a plug as well. Not only is he coaching these kids, he's also teaching them about good citizenship.
Yeah.
He took the track team up and cleaned up the old Lincoln School last year, and he's really put a lot of effort into those kids outside of track.
He's a good man.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you.
We'll get to your
Well,
volleyball.
the volleyball game. You guys have a good evening.
Appreciate it, sir.
Send us an update.
All right.
The other person that we have to do our presentation tonight is Dr. Steve Edwards. You all got to talk to him last board meeting like you are with Mr. Duncan on the line. Well, tonight we're going to reverse that role and give Dr. Edwards a moment to tie into number 10 is instructional initiatives. And he's going to tell you a little bit about what he's been doing here in our county. And he was in our county today, and he'll be in our county again tomorrow, working with our staff and our principals. So I'll just turn the floor over to Dr. Edwards.
Thank you. And it's good to see folks in real time and real place and real life. So thank you for having me. And had a great day today at each of the elementary schools. But just to kind of give you a quick overview of what's been happening thus far, my first visit was with the central office team and then with the principals. And the goal there was to kind of get a handle on where they perceive instruction and what instruction looks like in the county. Then the next visit was to spend time in each of the schools and for me to get a chance to get the taste, touch, feel, that experience of being in classrooms, meeting with the principals again in their context of the classroom, in their schools, and then debriefing with them after that. And today I actually met with teachers, and we've started that process of talking about instruction instructional practices and looking at ways that they can make minor changes that can have big results. It's really looking at a lot of little tweaks and adjustments for the most case that yield significant changes in instructional practices. Many times people think that, well, are you coming here to raise test scores? For me, test scores are a byproduct of good instruction. And I will say, having taught it to universities, that I feel that a lot of the programs that our teachers go through really don't give them a strong enough instructional background. And they come with not enough tools in their toolbox. And many times the instruction they get at the university level is tough to conceptualize because they haven't had time really in a classroom to have those experiences that allows you to raise the right questions. So what we're doing is really working on a few key pieces. Linking everything is driven from standards. What are the West Virginia state standards? How do you break those standards down? How do you take a deconstruction of those standards and create higher order learning activities that are consistent with expectations on the state assessment, but are also consistent with the kind of skills young people need to be effective and productive citizens in not only the county but in our country. So I'll stop there and entertain any questions, or if you want more detail on something, happy to do that.
I'm afraid to say anything, Dr. Edwards. I think my fellow members thought I dominated too much time and asked you too many questions last night. These initiatives and things that you teach, do you teach those also to teacher colleges, teacher education schools?
Well, I've worked with universities in the past, and I taught at 2 universities. So, yes, I've had a dialogue with schools of education, different deans from some colleges and so on, trying to get them to think differently about their practice. Unfortunately, many superintendents, many professors live in silos. They teach their courses and they don't really interact. And that's been a problem in public education. Is for many years, many teachers just are in their classroom and they live in their silo. So we had a session this morning at Hinton Area Elementary that turned into a highly collaborative session. Is that fair to say, Ms. Jones? And what came out of that resulted in a planning activity for an upcoming unit that the 5th grade teachers are doing. And that collaboration we built a better mousetrap. So I went beyond your question there, but hopefully that helps.
No, that's fine. So it sounds like that you're meeting a lot of open-minded teachers who are being receptive and cooperative and are trying to improve their craft.
Okay, is that a question or a statement?
It's a statement.
Okay.
But you can feel free to elaborate on it.
No, that's true. I mean, today I met, and tomorrow I'll be at the high school and middle school, but today I met with teachers who I believe definitely had the mindset that, hey, let's think about some different ideas. Let's think about how we approach teaching and learning, and let's work together on that. And I think, Ms. Jones, you could agree with that. Is that fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Given that right now the teachers have a limited amount of time with their students, 2 days a week as opposed to 5, are you able to incorporate any techniques that might help them maximize what class time they do have? Because this is understandably a situation none of them have ever had to encounter before.
Well, part of this conversation is looking at what we call power standards. If a teacher was expected to get through every standard with the level of development that standard requires, there's just not enough time. You couldn't do it. It's a check we can't cash. But what we do is we started that conversation today about talking about power standards. So what you take is one standard and say, what standards, other standards can fit underneath that. So when we focus on that standard, we're getting more bang for our buck. And that really becomes an important consideration when you have your children for a lot less time. You don't have the time to spend on some of those more fringe standards. You've got to focus on what we call those power standards. So that does tie right into the question you raised.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there anything that you would suggest that we might do to improve our virtual instruction that would positively improve the current student achievement we're getting? Because virtual and remote learning, everything you hear indicates it's not very successful. And is there anything you could suggest that might improve that achievement?
Sure. And that really connects to face-to-face as well. But what I'm going to say becomes more impactful when children are in a virtual world. There's a couple of things that have to happen in teaching and learning. And one is that we have to create relevant learning experiences for children. Many times people say, well, you need real-world application. That's true. But real-world application that is relevant for students and relevant for children by age and by context. So what I mean by context is if I'm a fifth grader in Southern West Virginia, well, what's relevant and meaningful to me? I gave an example today to some of the teachers that I was with a young man in another county in Southern West Virginia a while back. I guess it was last year before we shut down. And he had gotten in trouble and he was sitting in this office area that I often use to when I got a break to do some work. And I got talking with him and we started talking about hunting. And he went on for 20 minutes without stopping about hunting. Anytime we can connect learning to something that's meaningful, it's like any of us. When you have something, I paint, okay? Not very well, but I paint. And when I go up and paint, the other night my wife came up at 2 in the morning and said, "Are you coming to bed?" And I didn't even realize it was 2 in the morning because it's something I love doing. You know, I didn't look at the clock and go, "Oh gosh, I got to paint for another hour." No, so when we think about a virtual world, when we can do that, and when we can create higher order learning activities where we engage children in relevant problem solving and thinking activities, their level of engagement is going to go way up, as opposed to, which I see places, kids are just accessing on their platform worksheet after worksheet, and you're going to lose them real quick when that happens.
So creativity of teachers, being able to create, for example, project-based learning that will engage students in something they relate to and that they're interested in, and they can apply their real-world perspectives. That's the real challenge here of teaching that.
Absolutely, and PBL is a great tool if we hit those higher order thinking activities with our students. And again, activities that are relevant for them. We can get at our outcome of hitting those standards a lot of different ways. And we've got to give students more opportunities to choose their pathway. We create an activity that's broad enough that allows them to explore multiple pathways to get to where we want them to get. We have to be the facilitator to help them ensure that they get what we need them to get. And when that happens, when that happens really well, children have a whole lot of fun and they don't realize they're learning. And that's, if you get to that, that's nirvana.
I'm sure as we proceed with this, we'll have additional questions on what you're finding and what you feel like your accomplishments are. But as one board member, I like what I'm hearing from you, and I appreciate what you're doing. And I'm most gratified to hear that we have a lot of teachers who are being engaged and that they are coming at teaching from a different perspective than perhaps they have been. That's great to know.
Well, thank you. And the principals received assignments today. I met with them after school from about 3:30 to 4:30. Dr. Nod, Ms. Jones have got their assignments. So I think they start to go the other way when they see me now. But yeah, we've got, one of the keys with this is that before I come next time, there are things that I expect people to do. And if they do them, then we keep moving forward.
That's very good, because principals, other people in our system or administrative positions, they have to be instructional leaders. And what we're hoping is they're going to become real disciples of Dr. Edwards. And so if that happens, it's going to be a lot of bang for the buck.
Well, that's what we're hoping for and shooting for. So thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I guess you can sneak on out of here too.
Okay. Well, thank you. I don't have a volleyball.
You don't have volleyball games?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Dr.
Bye.
We'll see you
Have a good
tomorrow.
night. Thank you.
And all that set up. Just real quick.
8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
We have, I know it's not on the agenda, but this presentation, I just wanted to give an update with Ken Lester on Bobcat Connect, Wi-Fi in the whole county. And I think you guys need to hear this, but it won't be that long. I know it wasn't officially on the agenda, but I think people need to see this tonight and hear about this. And then you guys can answer any questions, because I tried to do it last board meeting and I don't think I did any justice. So I want to turn it over to Mr. Lester, and he has done a wonderful job making this happen. So I just want to publicly praise him for his efforts of putting this together. It's yours, Mr. Lester.
Well, before I go back over this, because we have to thank a lot of people for allowing this to happen. But November 12th will be another technology help night, open to any parents or students that want to come to Hinton Area Elementary. It will be a board night. So from 3 to 6 will be the technology help, and then I'll come over here and support you guys. But I know that Mr. Duncan brought that up. We've had Title I events at Jumping Branch, Talcott, and Hinton area. They all had the availability of Christy or myself. I was at Hinton area. Christy was at all of them. And there was people that took the advantage and came in to get help. So we think we're going to do that again. So it's right before Thanksgiving. And it's on a night that we're already staying here late for the board meeting. So we're on tile that together. So anybody that's listening to this video later, if you want technology help, whether it's connecting to Bobcat Connects, whether it's getting help with your Chromebook or iPad, or if you're an option 3 student and you want to come in and get help getting to your option 3 classes and using those resources, we're going to be there to help. There are a number of churches, Bluestone View Primitive, River Valley Baptist, and Upland Church. They're all installed and up and running, as well as Pipestem, Sandstone, and Forest Hill volunteer fire departments, and 2 community convenience stores, Vandals and Country Road Store. All of these are up and running as of yesterday. Forest Hill required an antenna adjustment. And when I say that, that means Ken's climbing around, putting it in different places, because what I found is we've been able to get a connection better than expected everywhere except going out toward Monroe County on where River Valley is and Forest Hill. It's difficult to get that connection there. But the speeds in those locations will be slower. I can't help that. But you know, one antenna is hanging out of the window, another one is conveniently hidden outdoors in a rafter. But all of the parking lots have been tested. I probably should start going to each site every now and again to make sure the connection's up. But with that said, you've got the Kids Connect ones. our schools are already set up as hotspots. So anybody comes into a parking lot at the school, their school device will connect. And they'll have the fastest speed possible if they do that. They come to a school, go to the parking lot, they're going to be able to connect as long as you're close enough to the building and not out, on the far reaches of the campus. That connection will be faster than any of these connections. The blue ones are the Governor's Kids Connect, Pipestem and Bluestone. And then we've tried to put these orange stars in places that were not served by the other locations. And we couldn't have done this if these community volunteers did not be okay with these students being on their property or on their area. We did file a BRIM certification request, and we've received one back for every location here for a school-sponsored event. So we have those certificates. But going forward, I'm pulling data, and this is a bar graph, and this is Vandal's store at Green Sulphur Springs, and it shows the usage in gigabytes. And to do a gig of data, you've been there. I mean, somebody has been at there and stayed on it for a while. The passwords for these are not out in the public. They are hard coded into the devices, so community members cannot connect to these. This is a student on that device, and I can see that telemetry remotely. So we know that one's being used. Forest Hill, Pipestem, all those just came online. Sandstone, I see usage there, and Pent Springs as well. I don't see as much, very much usage right now on the Ellison or Upland, but the word hasn't gotten out. And we don't know where all of this is going to go in the future. So we're ready, as ready as we can be. But if we find that one's not getting used as much as another, or it's not getting used at all, maybe we can move it to a better location. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, let me know.
We had a internet service or remote service on the phone company to give us a discount.
There's three.
You go over that.
Yeah, there's three need-based, and all the principals receive this information. I've also, as people call in and ask, I will send it to them in an email. It's difficult to tell them the web addresses. The web addresses are so long, they're not going to get that over the phone. But we're not sponsoring and we're not endorsing these providers, but two of them are nonprofits, and one of them is Altice, which owns Suddenlink. So the two nonprofits, they are resellers of sorts of community mobile, and that uses the Sprint backbone for its hotspot, and it's no different than you getting a Sprint MiFi. You get a similar device that's a MiFi. For someone that's not the board of education, so if somebody does this on their own, they have to go through one of these nonprofits, and they have to show need. Whether some of them are, you have to show that you're on free or reduced lunch, which we know all of our county is a qualified for that. But I think, what is the rate here? 70-some%. So 70-some% of our students would qualify for this need-based service. It's difficult to get internet for $15 a month, and that's what the community mobile is. The Altice, which is through Suddenlink, and it's not wired, they're using another cell provider. I'm not sure which one it is, but if you live in an area that doesn't get Sprint, they may be another option, but it's going to be a MiFi as well. AT&T's. So they're partnering with AT&T, and so if you get AT&T and you don't get the others, Sprint, US Cellular is pretty good in our area, but there are places that AT&T is better, and I would say the Altice option would be good. We probably should post this out on our website, but this information will be at technology help night. So it can be confusing when somebody goes to it. We talked about it on in text messages for a while, but you know, a lot of the vendors, like if you go down to the Sprint store, they're not going to know they offer this because the nonprofit is not allowed to compete with the vendor. They don't advertise. So the vendor's not a reseller. It's the nonprofit, and they give up a small percentage of their network for educational or socioeconomic areas, and that's where this comes from.
So if anybody wants more information on it, they can call you.
They can call. I'll send them an email. It has everything in it. Mr. Bergen, I think you saw that information, and all the principals have it. So, and we'll be able to help them on.
Mr. Lester,
Yes, sir.
are you able to determine the number of different users at the different sites as opposed to the total amount of data used?
There is a report on this infrastructure, this web page that I have that has clients, but it's not populating clients. So I've got to figure out why that's not happening, but that's going to require me to call NetCloud, which is the management system, and figure out why it's not showing me individual clients. There's also a GPS function. It'd be a really bad idea for somebody to steal one of these and run off with them and plug it in somewhere. It's not going to work out well for you.
Once you get that issue worked out, if you get that worked out, then the next time you report to us, if you might share that data with us so we get a feel for how many of our students are using this service at the various sites.
Yes, sir.
And Superintendent Warble, I don't know, I'm sure you've done something, but on behalf of the board, these people who are being so kind as to assist us, is there some way to send out a letter on behalf of the board saying how much we appreciate them being involved in our county's school system and helping us to educate our students?
Yeah, we sure can. And we did work with our attorneys and also our insurance company, Brim, to work with all these state companies or volunteer stations and churches to make sure that, I'm not going to call it a hold harmless clause, but it works with our legal and our Brim insurance. So that was a world we weren't prepared for. This is all new to us, but we're very thankful. I know the stores don't have a problem with it. It brings business, and hopefully it brings business to the churches too. So there's always room for one more.
It's a good thing for public relations between the board and the community, and also we can thank them. And it's important for the rest of the county to know that we have a lot of citizens and schools and churches, et cetera, that are working together to help us on student achievement. So if you can send something out to them on behalf of the board saying thank you, I think it would be a nice touch.
We'll do.
I noticed there's a pop in the numbers on Wednesday. Those are typically spelling test days.
Oh, spelling. Well, I think as the need goes up, and if we end up with more cases or something, we're going to be ready. I think the total number of students using them right now is low, but they just became active. Right? So,
If we should have to put it down, it's going to increase the rate.
Yeah. There's no cap on the data, right?
no, that was one of the great advantages of going with U.S. Cellular, is they work with Concise. And we don't have a cap. We have unlimited data. I did get back and check on that. And it uses a network that, U.S. Cellular and Sprint are on pretty much on the same towers here.
Have you been around the Kids Connect them at Pipestem? That's a pretty spread out place.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where it is in Pipestem.
Yeah.
Whether it's at the lodge or is it down the tram at the river. So we know we've had the superintendent of I think the superintendent reached out to Nathan at Bluestone a because the only people can connect to the Kids Connect, the Governor's Kids Connect, is you either have to have a higher ed email address or a K-12 email address. You use that email address, and that's a distinct difference between what our hotspots and theirs. They put their email address in and their password, and they register like you would at a hotel room for your Wi-Fi. The Bobcats Connect, the device already has that password in it. I got a call just before the meeting. I couldn't connect to Pipestem Volunteer Fire Department. It said it needed a password. So guess where I'm stopping on the way home? See what's up with that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Item number 8, approval of minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as read.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. Let the minutes reflect that by a 5-0 vote, the minutes have been approved. Item number 9, student success stories.
We're gonna start that up next month. I do know I have one principal that's interested in doing that, so if another 1 or 2 jump in, we'll do as many as we possibly can, but, that's coming next month. And then we did number 10 with, Dr. Edwards there with initiatives.
All right, item number 11, community volunteerism.
I don't have any report at this point in time.
All right, moving to item 12, approval of bills.
I'd like to ask that any and all bills from James and Law and McGraw-Hill be pulled out and voted on separately, because I would want to abstain from voting on those because of conflict of interest.
There is a James and Law, and then we also have a Gregory Angel in there too as well. Is there anything else that I did? Is there any other?
Let Greg Angel on that one.
Okay.
So I think if we could do all the bills with the exception of Greg Angel and James and Law and McGraw-Hill, if we could do all of those, then it would seem that everybody could vote yea or nay.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills besides the 3 mentioned.
Second.
So 2 mentioned,
Besides the 3 mentioned.
is there a purpose?
Oh, there's no,
I think there's only 2.
there's only 2, okay.
Okay.
So that's mentioned.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second by Mr. McBride. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
I vote to pay all the bills with the exception of the James and Law.
Abstaining? All right. So by a 5-0 vote, it is passed to pay the bills with the exception of the bills paying Gregory Angel and James and Law. All right, I make a motion that we pay the bill to James and Law.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
I abstain.
All right, let the minutes reflect that the board has voted to pay James and Law by a 4-0 vote, with 1 abstention being Mr. Duncan.
I'll make a motion to pay Greg Angel.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of paying Greg Angel, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect that by a 4-0 vote, with 1 abstention being Mr. Angel, that we have voted to pay Greg Angel. All right. Item number 13, transfers and supplements.
Should have 1 page here with front to back. That's the only one we have, right?
That's actually with the bills, so we
That's
don't
what
have
the bills. Oh, it is. I I guess I need to blow it up for my eyeballs. There's nothing there. Sorry about that.
All right, item 14, old business. Yeah. All right. Item 15, approved purchases over $20,000.
Don't have that.
Have none of those.
It's a good thing.
All right, item B, approve agreement between NECCO and Summers County Board of Education for the 2020-2021 school year.
Okay, so, letter B and letter C are gonna be very similar, and we'll probably have another company or two. All these are dealing with foster families.
This is informational.
Yeah, this is, foster families are becoming more and more in our country, not just our state, but since we're in this state, we're gonna talk about our area. We do have some foster kids that go to our public schools, and, we make agreements with these entities to let them know we'll work with them and the students' conditions, whether it's academic, social, emotional, or all the above. We want those kids to succeed as well. And so this is just an MOU saying we agree to work with those agencies to help these children out who, no fault of their own, get put in our county care to work with the school system. So you'll see a couple more as they come forward. It's just where we are with our world right now, guys. But we'll do this first one. They're both basically saying the same thing.
We do both of them same thing.
That's up to you all if you want to do that. That's fine.
Yes, that's fine.
I'll make a motion that we approve the agreements between NECCO and Summers County Board and United Methodist Family Services Board of Education.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Uh,
Aye. Opposed? Abstained. Let the minutes reflect that by a 5-0 vote, we have approved
DC.
agreements. I'm sorry.
DC is together.
Okay, items B and C.
Yeah.
Agreements between NECO and the Summers County Board of Education and the Burlington United Methodist Family Services Board of Education. All right, item D, approve agreement between Summers County Board of Education and Summers County School of Nursing and
Sorry.
Rehabilitation.
Sorry about that. Basically, you guys, you do this basically every year with this contract. So again, it's just another MOU saying that we'll work with them as we move forward. So you guys can see all the information on here. Unless you have any questions, that's it in a nutshell. Kind of like the one you just approved with our foster care program.
I make a motion, we approve the D as read.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining. Let the minutes reflect that by a 5-0 vote, we have approved the agreement between Summers County Board of Education and Summers County Nursing and Rehabilitation. All right, let's see. We have moved item F up to next, so it is now item E, I guess. Discussion and or possible action of superintendent goals.
I move that we go into executive session based on 6-9A-4 personnel superintendent.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. Let the minutes reflect that by a 5-0 vote, the motion has passed, and we will go into executive session.
Let's see if I get a contract.
Who made the motion and who seconded that one?
The motion was made by the chair, or no,
Good.
That's fun.
Hello.
Hello, okay, we're back in session.
What is the time?
The time is now 7:19.
So we're calling meeting back to order out of executive session. Okay.
Yes. All right. So item F, discussion and possible action on superintendent goals. And in executive session, the superintendent was kind enough to present us with some proposed goals, which the board agreed were good goals. So, Mr. Duncan, do you have anything further you would like to add?
On that note, other than Mr. Warble presented us some good goals, and we'll be working with those in the next spring.
All right, discussion and or possible action concerning board goals for academic achievement.
I wanted to point out that according to our attorney, although there's no statute requires the board or any board to establish goals, I asked this to be placed on the agenda because there's also no statute that says you can't have them. And so since you can have them, I thought it would be good for us to point out, work together here and come up with some goals. And I would say from the very get-go here that we need to demonstrate the importance that we're placing on student achievement. And so other than that, I'd kind of like to open it up for discussion among any members who might have something they want to discuss about it. But I would throw out immediately that we want to establish some type of goal about student achievement, and it could be monitoring or implementing practices that demonstrate high expectations and leadership from the board and superintendent that will affect student achievement in a positive way. So, I don't know. I've thrown that out there. Anybody got any discussions or anything that you'd like to add? I have some other things or thoughts that I have as well.
Well, I think student achievement should be first and foremost. Bottom line, that's why everybody walks in the building every day.
Yep.
So I agree.
But then I think the goal could be as simple as, we could write these up later and post them, but I think it could be as simple as the board wants to focus on student achievement and have regular monitoring with the superintendent in meetings of the different practices that are taking place that are helping improve student achievement overall, K-12. I think that's a good one. I think another one that is important, tonight we had a retreat work session with Dr. Howard O'Call from Western School Board Association. And I think it's important to note that we set as a goal that periodically throughout the year that we do this, particularly as we see a need for it, that we'll have additional retreats and training with Dr. O'Call. He's been doing this 30-some years. He works with all 55 counties. And so I think that's important to assure that the board is growing in our practices of our responsibilities. And I would throw out another one, which we've already started working on, but I think it's an important goal here because it's going to require us to continue working. And that is on our Board of Education policies. And we have engaged Bowles Rice to begin working on our board policies, make sure that they're up to date and that they're compliant with legislative dictates. And as such, we asked Bowles Rice to do triage on them and begin working on the policies that are most important that we need to update. And we recognize that that's a big job. And it might take us until the end of this physical year to get a good start on it, and it may run over into July 1 of next fiscal year. But whatever it is, it's important to note that we have done that. So if you want me to go back and restate these, or if any members want to add something to it, please feel free. Those are just things that I've looked at based upon the report from the State Department, having been before the State Board of Education, and things that I just really feel that we do need to work on. Any thoughts, everybody?
I have to say that I definitely agree with through the training we had in September, and then also, Dr. O'Call, I guess, did an overview of the whole thing again tonight with us. I definitely agree with the policies. I guess I can just speak for myself on this. I definitely need more knowledge and just what's inside the policies themselves, rather than have to go to O'Call or the attorneys or anybody. There's a lot of this stuff we should be able to answer on our own, and just spend some time in the policies, get that knowledge on your own rather than reaching out.
I agree. He also recommended workshops for the board and the superintendent, and I think that would also be a good idea as well, to sort of, in a setting where we can actually just have an open dialogue without having to worry about Robert's Rules of Order or anything else. Discuss what we would like to see as a group that we would be able to do to move student achievement along and improve what we can fix within our schools and our community. So I think that's a good call.
Superintendent Warble, you are in a position there, although they're board goals, is there things we're overlooking or things you might suggest to us for consideration?
I think at this time, those three are pretty lofty goals already. Just you guys being reflective and looking at what the state came up with an action plan. And then tonight with Howard O'Call, I find him to be kind of a breath of fresh air with his point of view on things. And then now that we're getting our policies cleaned up, a lot of them haven't been touched since 1974. It's 2021 we're going into. I think that's like about 46, 47 years of data that needs to be either pushed out because it's outdated, and then others that need to be cleaned up. But like you guys have stated, it would be good to get up to date on those policies, because that's what makes the system run and gets more effective when we know about it versus we're just being compliant about it. And you guys are going to get to know a lot about policies because we're in that position right now to know about them. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Well, statutorily, we're not required to do it, so therefore we don't have any data on it. How would members, let me throw this out, how would you all feel if between now and our next regular meeting, I work maybe with Superintendent Warble, write these up in a very clear and concise, short statements that I can bring before you at the next regular meeting, and then see if everybody's in agreement with them, and then we could approve them as a body. Is that okay with you?
Sounds good to me.
I would be agreeable with that.
Mr. Angel?
That's fine. Sounds like a good
Anybody?
plan.
Okay, well then I think, since I'm hearing everybody agree to that, but I think that's what I'll do. And Mr. Warble, if you'll place that on the agenda for the first regular meeting in November, then I'll get these written up and present them, these three, and present them back to the board, and then the board can move to approve them or disapprove them. Okay?
Sounds
All
good.
right. All right, I think we can move on then.
All right.
Will there be, while we're on the next meeting subject, which will be, looks like the 12th, is that correct?
Yes.
Will that be the only meeting for the November?
Well, let's talk about that. I got some.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. That's a good question.
Okay. He's got that one. Item 19.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're good.
One step ahead. All right. Item 16, personnel items.
Yeah, you have
just a few tonight to go through, and then you have in front of you the last attachment with Ms. Finley about maternity leave, and you can see her letter there requesting that. But we also have a new type of classification that we've been discussing with the bus garage. I think you have a gentleman here that's been living in that bus garage, and he would like some help. And I feel like with the two individuals here who passed their test, they had to take a test, written and a physical test, to see if they can handle the work, and they passed it. And we're going to try it for a year and see how it works itself out. But that's all we have for our people who are hiring and who are allowing to have a maternity leave. And you can see most of it is county source, but on the front page you'll see the Title II and the mentor state funding pays for that as well. So if you don't have any other questions, I'll turn it back to you.
How would you all like to do this? Would you like to do them all at one
I don't
time?
want to address that, just say we'll all guess.
All right. And we have concluded that these don't have to be read out individually since we are in the meeting and we have this written down, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
you all have a copy.
I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the superintendent's recommendation on professional personnel, service personnel, substitute service, and the leave request for professional personnel.
I have a motion and a second. I'll call for the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Stan, are you there? Stan?
Somebody muted me, but I.
That was you that muted you.
That was a Mr. Duncan mute.
All right. Opposed?
Somebody in the back, somebody in the stage behind me, they didn't want to hear me talk, but I would, I vote aye in the affirmative for approving the superintendent recommendations.
Okay. Opposed? Abstaining. Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote. We have approved the superintendent's recommendations for personnel, for professional service, substitute service, and the leave request. All right. Item number 17, approve in and out of county requests. Okay, item 18, superintendent's report.
I'll make this quick, just three things. First of all, I'd like to thank the entire staff for all they've been doing. There's a lot of people that feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and tormented by this invisible being called COVID. And our staff, everybody, has worked to make sure our kids are safe. And our kids have done a great job complying with wearing these things on their faces. And I gotta say, everybody's done a heck of a good job. And you heard from Chad today. We're trying to work in concert to make sure everybody is safe. But I don't want people to think it's gone unnoticed. I see a lot of people working effortlessly to just make it happen. They're like ducks on water. Underneath the water, their feet are just paddling. But above, our teachers, our service personnel, everybody seems pretty calm. Now, I do approach the cooks when they put the knife down because I know sometimes you just feel like I gotta hit something, you know, you're frustrated. But the staff has done a heck of a good job, and I feel like everybody has worked together to make that happen. It has not gone unnoticed. The second thing I want to report on real quick is the second quarter. I want to do another announcement to let parents know that when we go into the second quarter, the second 9 weeks, you have to stay with one or two. We can't have people hopping back and forth. We have to keep it settled at choosing one or two. People who choose or who chose option 3 are staying in option 3 because they're there for a semester. I just want to make sure that second quarter is a little calmer than the first quarter, but we're learning as we go. We're trying to be fluid
and work with all people, but our teachers and our parents have to make some agreement that says, I'm staying in 1 or I'm staying in 2 for a quarter. And then if you'd like to move again, the second 9 weeks or the second semester, then we can open that up for all 3 options again. If you choose option 3 though, that's for a complete semester. But right now, option 1 and 2, we were letting them in and out that first quarter. But after getting some feedback, the best thing we can do is to help our teachers to let them say, pick 1 or 2, can't be both of them. So that's going to be out there for our parents to let them know. And our principals are doing a great job calling parents to let them know what's going on with Wi-Fi connectivity, if you're a blended model, and why it doesn't work. And I know Mr. Lester and his teams work together, but some people didn't realize their Wi-Fi wasn't as good as what they thought it was, and that's nobody's fault. It's just you don't know until you do something, guys. This is all new. The third thing is this is not an easy decision, so I'm not going to put the board in this position. I'll just take it myself, and you guys can let me get beat up for this. But right now, as a parent and a concerned person in our society, I feel like we should stay with 2 days a week right now. I would love to go 4 days a week, but after having a conversation with doctors, looking at the trend in our country, and talking to Chad, who deals with this, I don't think it would be smart to jump into going 4 days of school right now. We're going into what I call the sick season, where without COVID, kids get sick this time of year because now there's not much daylight. We're all enclosed and turn the heat on. I would like to propose this and suggest this, that we wait to go more than 2 days a week at the end of the first semester, because that gives us until January-ish to look at that. That gets us through Thanksgiving and Christmas, because I'm afraid people are going to gather. I can't mandate that. I can't force people not to get together because we're human beings. That's what we do. I expect that, but I also know that at the end of the day, I can't predict what the future is going to be with this virus. But what I can predict is human behavior. And right now, human behavior since March, it has only done this with COVID. I can't stop that if people don't think this through a little bit more. So whenever to help everybody, if people want to beat the new superintendent up, then beat me up. I'll take that one all day long. I'd rather just stay with 2 days a week and look at going 4 days a week after the first semester. Why are we in a hurry to get sick or kill some people? I don't want to sound dramatic, but I also know at the end of the day, I've been in education 22 years. I've yet to lose a kid at a field trip, and that's going out of state and coming back for a week with them in DC, Florida, and any other trip you can think about. I've never had anybody get hurt except when I coached football, and that was expected. But I've never had anybody die on my watch. I really don't want to go down that road, guys, because my name will be attached to that, and I know as board members, your name will be attached to it. So I'm just letting you know, if you don't like that idea, I'm okay with that, but I want to stand in front of everybody in God and country and say, I think we better stay with 2 days right now and look at 4 days the second semester, because that COVID, it just seems like we're getting worse in our country right now. You guys can beat me up. I'm okay with that.
I agree with you guys. I was pushed pretty hard for the 4 days, but I mean, with the increase we're having right now, I think that would be a foolish decision to make. Is there any chance, just something to think about between now and then?
Yeah.
Is there a chance to just have option 1 and 3 rather than have option 2?
There is, but here's the problem you get into. If you as a parent say, I really don't want to put my kid in the school system because I'm scared about COVID, I feel like schools and church should be about the same. It should be a sanctuary of peace and harmony. We all get along. I don't want people to feel like I send my kid to school, they got COVID and got severely sick, and they attach that with the school setting. I don't know what else to do to help. I think that's a great question. This is a question that's going on right now with all of us educators is, how do we find the push and pull, and what is, don't talk about politics, but what is best for our children right now? And I can tell you right now, our children really need to be in school. but there's a cost to that if we don't watch what we're doing. And so I can't really mandate or force parents to say, send your kid to school, or I'm going to send the truancy officer after you. I just don't think that's, if there was no COVID,
That
I
would
would,
be what option 3 would be.
well, but they can't do option 3 if they can't do the Wi-Fi connectivity strong. At least with the blended, I have teachers that can still make phone calls and work with them. Our teachers are getting real creative, probably more creative than they ever thought they'd be. But you know how Dr. Edwards talked earlier, how we didn't go to school to learn all that stuff. Not one of us in this room went to school to deal with the pandemic. And I don't think any of us are equipped with understanding this mess, but we do understand one thing. A lot of people are scared, tired, and just stressed out the wazoo about paying bills and worrying about their children and everything else that goes on with that. If I can alleviate a little bit, I'll try that, but I just, 2 days has been working, because you heard Chad say earlier, thank goodness that was on a Wednesday when that happened over there. We had time to breathe and say, let's just hold off. And you saw we went to school this whole week. Keeping them in these smaller pods has worked. But I don't know that it's the best for education, but it's, at this point in time, it is, guys. And if anybody's gonna get beat up in the county, I'll take that one on, because I don't want you guys to get beat up and everybody say, well, what's going on here? But I'm just going with science and facts and looking at the data, and the data just keeps it going straight up. And if we know that that's happening, why would you try to risk our number one resource, which is our children, guys? I couldn't look people in the eye and say, yeah, I did this because it was a gut feeling. I don't think you guys would appreciate that for me to say it was a gut feeling. Gut feelings are only good for last minute stuff. This isn't a last minute thing. We do not have to force people into the buildings. But having said that, if you're a kid who's special needs, we follow that IEP. So they will go 4 days a week because their IEP says they have a learning disability and they need to get those minutes in the school system. And right now, the minutes aren't there because if you're only going 2 days a week. So we're focusing on the most at-risk children, and then everybody else who's traditional will have to just adjust with us and work with us. So that's where we're at this point in time.
I noticed some of the adjoining counties seem to be having problems getting printed copies of their homework and stuff. Have we had any complaints or any problems?
I don't know. My directors, have you heard?
Not enough to remember. I'll be honest.
Well,
I know that all of my son's stuff has been virtual. He goes in online, turns it in, and then finds out that he hasn't turned it in correctly, so it's blank, so we redo it.
Yeah.
But
And he's a boy.
and there's that. And as to the 2 days a week versus 4 days a week, as one of the parents who is spending roughly 3 hours a day trying to focus a child's attention on his schoolwork, which is not unlike trying to keep a flea on a hot rock. I would love for him to be able to be in school 4 days a week. But also as a parent whose child goes to one of the schools affected by COVID, I understand the fear.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the only decision we can make at this time.
But if we look at it, we're looking about mid-January to say, what could we go into 4 days a week? Just look at November, it's chopped up. You have Thanksgiving week, you have the week before that is Veterans Day, and what's the first week? Oh, election, right? So, that gets chopped up, and Dr. Knott's worked well to get the food ready for November. It's a chopped up month. Well, then you go into Christmas season with December. It's almost like, let's just make a better bad decision right now. But Mr. Lester, you have something to add about the technology piece?
Well, the question of printing, and I spoke briefly with Greg about this. The teachers talk to the TIPS coaches regularly, and they talk to me and the principals. There has been a request for the ability to annotate digitally, which would remove some need for printing in situations where they want somebody to try to mark on a piece of document. So we have requested a quote for a third-party extension on Chrome that would allow everybody to annotate directly and that get uploaded back through Google Classroom seamlessly. Depending on the cost of that, because I haven't received the quote back, we got to see how much it costs to do that. But that goes in line with your question, Mr. Angel.
We could pay for that with COVID money, probably, if we got.
He has a fund, that I gave, I allotted him money, but just, yes, and what I'm hoping is this second stimulus package, I'm hearing going more money to schools. That would be a great thing for our school system to get some more money to help out with something like that. So,
Thank you, Mr. West.
yeah. Those are my things those are my three things I wanted to talk to you all about.
All right, item 19, discussion of next agenda.
We have November and December down there. Okay. I put a calendar in front of you all because we have extra calendars and I marked on them with an X. So right now, November 12th is our next meeting. Now I know next Thursday we have a special meeting for the consolidation closure hearing, but that's not what I'm talking about here. November 12th is our future meeting. And what we could do is, here's my proposal. If we have one meeting in November, then do 2 meetings in December. What we could do is put December 3rd as the meeting in between 2 meetings. That way we can get around the holidays, if you will. And then the December 10th meeting would then be moved to the 17th to space it out and work with the 2 holidays. Now you guys can do whatever you want, but you don't have to even make a decision tonight. But you could make a decision saying, we know November 12th on the books, but you all need to look at December 3rd and 17th as a proposal. That way we can still pay our bills instead of trying to squeeze a second meeting in November, and I did work it out with my CSBO. That's why these numbers, I know I don't have to look back and see if I'm okay with it, because Sherry told me it was okay. See how I worked that out?
I see no problem with those.
If it works for you all, it works for us, and especially with Lauren, I know with her office paying bills, I did consult with her first, and I'm just like a married man. That's my work wife first. So I talked to her first, guys.
I think that's a good idea. I'm all for that.
Well, give Lauren credit. She thought that one through. That's Lauren's.
Something comes up, we can call a special meeting.
Okay, let's do that.
That sounds fine.
Okay, so we'll look at
Let me,
November 12th.
let me interject here. Coming up, our next meeting is a special board meeting. That's on consolidation of Summers County High School, Summers Middle School into that one building. I was wondering, could you go ahead and announce the date, time, and location so we have it on record, audio-wise, to everybody?
Yes.
Date, time, and locations of that. What are they?
Next Thursday, October 29th, 5 p.m. at the high school auditorium. That's 5 p.m. high school auditorium. And then there'll be the next meeting is the same night in Hinton, and that'll be at the gymnasium at the middle school, because we're going to do it there with room and the building just being that building, the way it smells and stuff. We'll go ahead and have it at 8 o'clock in the gymnasium that night. So 5 p.m. at the high school, 8 p.m. at the junior high building at the basketball court in the gymnasium there. We'll do it there. So there'll be plenty of room for both areas to spread out. Both those meetings I'll do a presentation. People can come and speak. They get 3 minutes to give you your thoughts. They have until tomorrow by 4 p.m. to submit anything in writing, because 3 minutes isn't that long. But if someone wants to come in tomorrow by 4 and give me a whole bunch of paperwork, then I will make copies for you all so you can read that and have that before you have the meeting. It gives you time. That's just following state code with 6204 to allow you that time to read materials. If there's no materials, I'll let you all know no materials. And then you'll have 3 minutes for people to speak at those meetings about this consolidation / closure hearing. And then I'll do a presentation as well. My directors will be there, because if there's anything that's specific towards their environment, and I can't speak to that. I will yield to them to speak on that, but I will put together a presentation that won't be long, but yet informational for people to understand.
Superintendent Warble, I know you've done this because we've had conversations. If you don't mind, would you go over how we have, I know you followed all the guidelines, would you talk about what you've done for on public, over on the air tonight, what you've done to advertise this meeting in all the different places as required by state code?
Yeah, every school building has a pink sheet of paper posted on the door 30 days before that meeting, because that's what you have to do. We also had to post it in the local papers. We posted it in the Hinton paper and the Register Herald, and we've kept copies of that for the date that it was put in the paper and where it was in the paper. And then we also have followed the guidelines of giving everybody a 3-ring binder. There's some in this room right now for people to come in and read through that, because we have to talk about all the things that 6204 tells us to talk about. We followed that down as well. So all that information has been out 30 days prior. I've had the local news come and do a article or do a little clip about it. We've also invited the news to come to this special meeting on the 29th. We've tried to be transparent to let everybody know what is going on. But every building that is owned by the board that has people going in and out of it, which would be the bus garage, this building, and our schools, have that pink sheet of paper taped on it. Even at the middle school that is vacated right now, has that on the door as well, due to it's the effect of those 2 buildings, and where we're going to have the 2 meetings. You have to have it on both those properties as well. I also made sure that our LSIC or Senate, faculty Senate people, whoever, the principals that are going to be affected by this and their people, they got a 3-ring binder like the board members did with all the details in it. The middle school, high school asked if I could come over there one day to answer questions. I went in person to the gymnasium and answered questions. They had some follow-up questions. I met with them last week on Zoom to answer any questions. The big concern they have right now is in that 3-ring binder of documentation, it talks about personnel. That's one subject area that you have to address. And personnel is looking at savings. Regardless if we had a consolidation or not, I wanted them to understand this county was about 7 to 10 over of personnel. Meaning this county this size was spending more money than it should on personnel because of how many students are in the schools and the size of the schools. Again, I don't come up with those numbers. Those numbers are the state numbers. I have to abide by those. If we're spending in a deficit spending and you asked me to be your superintendent and I took an oath, I have to look at that regardless of consolidation. But since we're talking about consolidation right now, that will be brought up in that meeting on reduction in force or absorbing through attrition. So if people retire or leave the county, we do not keep those jobs, we absorb them. So I want to go with not reducing anybody with their job. I'd like to absorb them. That way we can save money. So I know those have been some of the questions that have been asked of me and the concern, and the reason why they know about that is we have to be transparent, and that 3-ring binder was given to those schools being effective. And those are good questions to ask because it does affect people if you do a reduction in force. I understand that. I've had that done to me too, so I get that. Anything else you want me to talk about, Mr. Duncan?
No, that was most thorough, and I appreciate it. We've got it out there on the record, and that's good. And I thank you for your thoroughness there. The only thing regarding future agendas, what I mentioned to you earlier, was about the board goals. I'll have those put together. So if you'll have that under, I guess, old business on the next agenda. That's the only thing I have, guys.
Yes.
The only thing I think about it, we have it at the gym. The acoustics in there are not very good. If we have the cafeteria for
Yeah. We can do that.
Depending on how many seconds should be.
Oh, that's right. Dr. Nada's gonna tell us one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you on that one.
I'm sorry.
There's a microphone.
Your son said he'd help us.
We have to consider
He's
how
got a
many
microphone.
people might be attending, so we have to look at social distancing. The gym would be a bigger area.
Yeah, we can do that. And we've already made sure to 30 days out to let our athletic director know because in case there's any practice. Because I understand this time of year, gym time is premium.
It'll be fine.
All right, anything further?
You mentioned LSIC just a minute ago. I know the rules have changed and it's not necessary except for local performing schools. So where that be is, do we have local performing schools?
What we need to do is, I would like to do LSIC meetings if we could focus in the springtime. Because we'll know a little bit more about the effect of our academics. Whether low performing schools or not, I think it'd be good for the board and myself to go to each building and let them talk about their schools and what they've done. I don't, regardless of low performing, I think that would fit into my goals as well as your goals because it's about student achievement. So let's focus on LSIC in the spring.
Can we tie those into our regular board meetings?
Yes. Yeah, you can.
Save us a little bit of money.
Yes, you can do that. Just everybody has to know it's going to be a little bit like tonight, a little bit longer, but I just blame it on you guys. Don't worry about it. That's a joke there, Jay. I couldn't see your smile.
It's there.
All right, Mr. Angel, you're up.
7:56. Make a motion to adjourn.
You see that? Well, everybody knows I was.